unsuccessful invasion. And when Moses repeated these words to all the Israelites, the people mourned greatly. Early the next morning, they started up high into the hill country, saying, "Here we are, ready to go up to the place that the Almighty God spoke of, for we did wrong." But Moses said, "Why are you now transgressing the Almighty God's order? This cannot succeed. Do not go up, because the Almighty God is not in your midst. Do not allow yourself to be struck down by your enemies. For there the Amalekites and Canaanites will face you, and you will fall by the sword. You have turned back from following the Almighty God. Therefore the Almighty God will not be with you." Yet they dared to go up high into the hill country, even though neither the ark of the covenant of the Almighty God nor Moses left the camp. And the Amalekites and Canaanites who dwelt in that hill country came down and defeated them, beating them back as far as Hermah. And it's basically people are grumbling, complaining, talking crap. Discontent of the people. It says jealousy. 12, jealousy. Yep, so let's start here from the beginning. Numbers chapter 11. Discontent of the people. Now the people complained bitterly in the hearing of the Almighty God, and when he heard it, his wrath flared up, so that the Almighty God's fire burned among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. But when the people cried out to Moses, he prayed to the Almighty God, and the fire died out. Hence that place was called Taberah, because there the fire of the Almighty God burned among them. The riffraff among them were so greedy for meat that even the Israelites lamented, and if only we had meat for food. We remember the fish we used to eat without cost in Egypt, and the cucumbers, the melons, the leek, the onions, and the garlic. But now we are famished. We have nothing to look forward to but this manna. Manna was like corandia seed and had the appearance of bdellium. And when they had gone about and gathered it up, the people would grind it between millstones or pound it in a mortar, then cook it in a pot and make it into loaves with a rich and creamy taste. At night, when the dew fell upon the camp, the manna also fell. And when Moses heard the people, family after family, crying at the entrance of their tent, so that the Almighty God became very angry, he was grieved. "Why do you treat your servants so badly?" Moses asked the Almighty God. "Why are you so displeased with me that you burden me with all this people? Was it I who conceived all this people, or was it I who gave them birth, that you tell me to carry them at my breast, like a nurse carrying an infant to the land you have promised under oath to their fathers? Where can I get meat to give to all this people? For they are crying to me, 'Give us meat for our food,' and I cannot carry all this people by myself, for they are too heavy for me. And if this is the way you deal with me, then please do me the favor and killing me at once, so that I need no longer face my distress." And the 70 elders, then the Almighty God said to Moses, "Assemble for me 70 of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be elders and authorities among the people, and bring them to the tent of meeting when they are in a place beside you. And I will come down and speak with you there. And I will also take some of the spirit that is on you, and I will confer it on them, that they may share the burden of the people with you. And you will then have to bear it. You will not have to bear it by yourself. To the people, however, you shall say, 'Sanctify yourselves for tomorrow, when you shall have meat to eat.' For in the hearing of the Almighty God you have cried, 'If only we had meat for food. Oh, how well off we were in Egypt.' Therefore the Almighty God will give you meat to eat, and you will eat it not for 1 day or 2 days or 5 days or 10 or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your very nostrils and becomes very loathsome to you. For you have rejected the Almighty God, who is in your midst. And in his presence you have cried, why did we ever leave? But Moses said that the people around me include 600,000 soldiers, yet you say, I would give them meat to eat for a whole month. Can enough sheep and cattle be slaughtered for them? If all the fish of the sea were caught for them, would they have enough? The Almighty God answered Moses, is this beyond the Almighty God's reach? You shall see now whether or not what I have said to you takes place. The Spirit on the elders. So Moses went out and told the people what the Almighty God had said. Gathering 70 elders of the people, he had them stand around the tent, and the Almighty God then came down into the cloud and spoke to him. Taking some of the Spirit that was on Moses, he bestowed it on the 70 elders. As the Spirit came to rest on them, they prophesied but did not continue. Now 2 men, one named Eldad and the other named Medad, had remained in the camp. Yet the Spirit came to rest on them also. They too had been on the list, but had not gone out to the tent. And so they prophesied in the camp. So when a young man ran and reported to Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua son of Nun, who from his youth had been Moses' aide, said, my God, Moses stopped them. But Moses answered him, are you jealous for my sake? If only all the people of the Almighty God were prophets, if only the Almighty God would bestow his Spirit on them. Then Moses retired to the camp along with the elders of Israel, the quail. There arose a wind from the Almighty God that drove in quail from the sea and left them all around the camp, sight to a distance of a day's journey, and at the depth of the 2 cubits upon the ground. So all that day, all night, and all the next day, the people sat about to gather in the quail. Even the one who got the least gathered 10 homers of them. Then they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it could be chewed, the Almighty God wrath flared up against the people, and the Almighty God struck them with a very great plague. So that place was named Kibroth Hattaavah, because it was there that the greedy people were buried. From Kibroth Hattaavah, and the people set out for Hazeroth, where they stayed. Numbers 12, chapter 12, jealousy of Aaron and Miriam. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses on the pretext of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had in fact married a Cushite woman. They complained, is it through Moses alone that the Almighty God has spoken? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Almighty God heard this, and now the man Moses was very humble, more than anyone else on earth. So at once the Almighty God said to Moses and Aaron and to Miriam, come out, you 3, to the tent of meeting. And there the 3 of them went. Then the Almighty God came down in a column of cloud, and standing at the entrance of the tent, and called Aaron, Miriam. When both came forward, the Almighty God said, now listen to my words. If there are prophets among you, in visions I reveal myself to them, in dreams I speak to them. Not so with my servant Moses. Throughout my house he is worthy of trust. Face to face I speak to him plainly and not in riddles. The likeness of the Almighty God he beholds. Why then do you not fear to speak against my servant Moses? And so the Almighty God's wrath flared against them, and he departed. Miriam's punishment. Now the cloud withdrew from the tent, And there was Miriam, stricken with scaly infection, white as snow. And when Aaron turned toward Miriam and saw her stricken with snow-white scales, he said to Moses, "Ah, my God, please do not charge us with the sin that we have foolishly committed. Do not let her be like the stillborn baby that comes forth from its mother's womb with its flesh half consumed." Then Moses cried to the Almighty God, "Please not this, please heal her." But the Almighty God answered Moses, "Suppose her father had spit in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. Afterwards she may be brought back." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not start out again until she was brought back. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and encamped in the wilderness of Paran. Chapter 13, the 12 scouts. And the Almighty God said to Moses, "Send men to reconnoiter the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. You shall send one man from each ancestral tribe, each one a leader among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran at the direction of the Almighty God. All of them were leaders among the Israelites. These were their names: from the tribes of Reuben, Shammur, and sons of Zakur. From the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat, son of Hardi. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb, son of Jephunneh. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal. From the Josephites. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, Bathi, son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodi. From the Josephites, from the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, son of Susi. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel, son of Jamali. From the tribe of Abshur, Sephiah, son of Micah. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi, son of Babshi. From the tribe of Gad, Jeuel, son of Machi. These are the names of the men whom Moses sent to reconnoiter the land. But Hoshea, son of Nun, Moses called Joshua. And sending them to reconnoiter the land of Canaan, Moses said to them, "Go up there in the Negab, up into the highlands, and see what kind of land it is, whether the people living there are strong or weak, few or many. Is the country in which they live good or bad? Are the towns in which they dwell open or fortified? Is the soil fertile or barren, wooded or clear, or do your best to get some of the fruit of the land." It was then the season for early grapes. So they went up and reconnoitered the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as where Rehob adjoins led Bohamath, going up by the way of Negab. They reached Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Thalmai, descendants of the Anakim, were. Now Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. They also reached the Wadi Eschol, where they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes on it, which 2 of them carried on a pole, as well as some pomegranates and figs. It was because of the cluster of the Israelites cut there that they called the place Wadi Eschol. Their report: they returned from reconnoitering the land 40 days later, proceeding directly to Moses and Aaron and the whole community of the Israelites in the wilderness of Paran at the Kadesh. They made a report to them and to the whole community, showing them the fruit of the land. They told Moses, "We came to the land to which you sent us. It does indeed flow with milk and honey, and here it is, its fruit. However, the people who are living in the land are powerful, and the towns are fortified very large. Besides, we saw descendants of the Anakim there, and the Amalekites live in the region of the Negab. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites dwell in the highlands of the Canaanites, along the sea and the banks of the Jordan." Caleb, however, quieted the people before Moses and said, "We ought to go up and seize the land, for we can certainly prevail over it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We cannot attack these people. They are too strong for us." They spread discouraging reports among the Israelites about the land they had reconnoitered, saying, "Dear Almighty God, the land that we went through and reconnoitered is a land that consumes its inhabitants, and all its people we saw there are huge. And there we saw the Nephilim, the Anakim are from the Nephilim, and in our own eyes we seem to be like mere grasshoppers. So we must have seen to them. Numbers 14, chapter 14, threats of revolt. At this, the whole community broke out with loud cries, and the people wept in the night. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, the whole community, saying to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we would die here in the wilderness. Why is the Almighty God bringing us into this land only to have us fall by the sword? Our wives and little ones will be taken as spoil. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us appoint a leader and go back to Egypt. But Moses and Aaron fell prostrate before the whole assembly community of the Israelites, while Joshua's son or Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who had been among those that reconnoitered the land, tore their garments and said to the whole community of the Israelites, the land which we went through and reconnoitered is an exceedingly good land. If the Almighty God is pleased with us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against God. You need not be afraid of the people of the land, for they are but food for us. Their protection has left them, but the Almighty God is with us. Do not fear them. The Almighty God sentenced. The whole community threatened to stone them. Unsuccessful invasion. But the glory of the Almighty God appeared at the tent meeting to all the Israelites. And the Almighty God said to Moses, how long will this people scorn me? How long will they not trust me, despite all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them with pestilence and disown them. Then I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. But Moses said to the Almighty God, the Egyptians will hear of this, for by your power you brought out this people from among them. They will tell the inhabitants of this land, who have heard that you, God, are in the midst of this people. You, God, who directly reveal yourself, your cloud stands over them, and you go before them by day in the column of a cloud, and by night in the column of fire. If now you slay this people all at once, the nations who have heard such reports of you will say, the Almighty God was not able to bring this people into the land he swore to give them. That is why he slaughtered them in the wilderness. Now then, may my God forbearance be great, even as you have said. The Almighty God is slow to anger and abounding in kindness, forgiveness, iniquity, and rebellion, yet certainly not declaring the guilty guiltless by punishing children to the third and fourth generation for their parents' iniquity. Pardon then the iniquity of this people in keeping with your great kindness, even as you have forgiven them from Egypt until now. The Almighty God answered, I pardon them as you have asked, yet by my life and the Almighty God's glory that fills the whole earth, of all the people who have seen my glory in the signs I did in Egypt in the wilderness, and who nevertheless put me to the test 10 times already, have not obeyed me. Not one shall see the land which I promised on oath to their ancestors. None of those who have spawned me shall see it. But as for my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and follows me unreservedly, I will bring him into the land which he entered, and his descendants shall possess it. But now, since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn away tomorrow and set out into the wilderness by the way of the Red Sea road. Then the Almighty God said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community grumble against me? I heard the grumblings of the Israelites against me, and tell them, by my life, O the Almighty God, I will do to you what I've heard you say. Here in the wilderness your dead body shall fall. All of your men of 20 years or more enrolled in your registration who grumbled solemnly swear to settle you, except Caleb and Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. Your little ones, however, who you said would be taken as spoil, I will bring in, and they shall know the land you rejected. But as for you, your body shall fall here in the wilderness, while your children will wander for 40 years, suffering for your infidelity, till the last of you lie dead in the wilderness, corresponding to the number of days you spent reconnoitering the land, 40 days. You shall bear your punishment 1 day each year, 40 years. Thus you shall realize what it means to oppose me. I, the Almighty God, have spoken, and I will surely do this to this entire wicked community that conspired against me. Here in the wilderness they shall come to their end, and there they will die. And the men whom Moses had sent to reconnoiter the land, and who on returning had set the whole community grumbling against him by spreading discouraging reports about the land. These men who had spread discouraging reports about the land were struck down by God and died. Only Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh survived of all the men who had gone into to reconnoiter the land. And that's when it's God's unsuccessful invasion. On 12. And when Moses repeated these words to all the Israelites, the people mourned greatly. Israelites, early the next morning, they started up high into the hill country, saying, Here we are, ready to go up to the place that the Almighty God spoke of, for we did wrong. But Moses said, Why are you not transgressing the Almighty God order? This cannot succeed. Do not go up, because the Almighty God is not in your midst. Do not allow yourself to be struck down by your enemies. For there the Amalekites and Canaanites will face you, and you will fall by the sword. You have turned back from following the Almighty God. Therefore the Almighty God will not be with you.